I'm Tish and welcome back to another video on my channel Auto Social UK. Now with my job I'm really lucky that I get to test out new cars all of the time, and most of the time I'm happy to go with the flow, but occasionally a car really sparks my interest, and that for me is the Hyundai i30N. I'm a girl that loves a bit of petrol performance. Go. I like a hot hatch. I'm gonna drive the GR. I also like a noisy exhaust. And I even like a bit of an underdog. God, that's absolutely awful. It's never gonna come to the UK. And the Hyundai i30N has all of those boxes ticked. So in today's video, I'm gonna be finding out, is it just as good as it looks like on paper? So if that sounds interesting, then please make sure you keep watching. And if you like new car reviews and car content, then please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Okay, so let's start by talking about the styling. Now I think this car looks pretty striking. It could be a tad girly, finished in this blue paint colour, but personally I love it. It stands aside from the standard Hyundai i30 with the red detailing along the bottom. You've also got some more aggressive front and rear bumpers, and it sits on some massive 19-inch alloy wheels. Now this car did used to come in of two options, a standard and also a performance, which got slightly more brake horsepower and a few other options, including 19-inch alloy wheels. But now the Hyundai i30N is only available in the performance, and these 19s are wrapped in specific Pirelli tyres for the i30N and some massive 130mm brakes, which are finished with the red to match the front detailing, and it's got that N badge on it. So what does the N badge actually stand for? It was conceived in Nangrang, Korea, and it was also developed on the Nürburgring. As well as the slightly tweaked body kit, it's also 8mm lower than the standard i30. It comes in the option of either being this hatchback, but they also offer a fastback version, which starts from just over £1,000 more, which essentially is to compete with the Mercedes CLA. Those subtle details continue round the back. You've got the N etched into this plastic running board. You've also got this crease along the back bumper. You've got a subtle rear spoiler, not in your face like the Honda Civic Type R. This is definitely a much classier vehicle from the exterior styling, which I absolutely love. You've also got that red bar that runs along the bottom, and unavoidably, you've got some massive rear tailpipes, and these are actually physical as well. Now, you used to have the option to spec this up with the performance and you got the larger switchable exhaust, but that's now standard. And I know you all want to hear what this car sounds like because that really is its trump card, so I'll start it up. Isn't as big as in the Honda Civic Type R or the Megane RS, but it still has a respectable 381 litres, which is enough to swallow a couple of suitcases or your weekly shop. It is just short of the standard i30, as there's a rear strut bar that eats into some of the rear space. If you need a bit more space, the fastback has considerably larger boot thanks to its longer tail. It's not going to win any awards for space in the back, but if you're around my size, 5'5", it's going to be fine. I've got plenty of headspace and I've also got plenty of knee space. Although this seat is in my driving position, have a couple of 6-footers in the front and you might struggle for space in the back, especially with knee room. There's also a pull-out armrest with a couple of cup holders, but there isn't any USB-C charging ports, which is a bit of a shame. I have just been a tiny bit disappointed with the interior of this car. When I first jumped in it, I was super excited, and then I was just met with a lot of black plastic, and not exactly the best feeling plastic either. You have got, a slightly squidgy dash on top, but then as you get further down, even up high, it really does feel quite cheap and really dull. You've also got quite a nice steering wheel. I love the blue dials for your drive mode and also for your race mode. However, this isn't flat bottom, which again, I think is just a little bit of a disappointment. But at least you've got lots of physical dials and the equipment level is really good as well. I've got a rear view camera, satellite navigation, automatic lights, automatic wipers. I've even got high beam assist. And this car, for me, is made up for by having the upgraded sport seats. Now these wingback sport seats are really lovely and they look even better at night. Let me show you. The 2021 facelifted version of the Hyundai i30N has ditched the standard car and it now only comes in its performance variant, which makes sense for me because that was the one that everyone went for anyway. Under the bonnet is a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol, which they call the TGI, and that produces a whopping 276 brake horsepower. Three main driving modes on the Hyundai i30N, and they can be found on the drive mode button on the steering wheel. And this is Sport, Normal and also Eco mode. But there is also 2 separate modes as well, and they can be found via the flag on the steering wheel. Press the flag on the steering wheel and you've got the N Standard Custom, which pretty much sets everything to Sport Plus. But then you have a second mode, which is your N Custom 1, which you can kind of play around with and decide what settings you want it to be sitting in. Now, I have found the Hyundai i30N to be extremely hard, especially with these upgraded sport seats. So for me, I've got everything pretty much set to Sport Plus, but I have put the suspension in normal because it's just too rough even in sport. Something that I've actually never seen on a car like this either is it has a rev matching button. So when you're in your standard modes, normal, eco and sport, if you hit the rev matching button, then it will do exactly that. And it means that you don't have to worry about heel or towing. I can leave that to driving Bex. She loves a bit of heel toe, but it takes away the worry of having to think about that and you can just concentrate on driving. You used to only be able to get the Hyundai i30N in the 6-speed manual. However, they now offer an 8-speed dual clutch automatic as well, which I've heard really good things about. I love that the manual is still available. I am a person that likes an automatic gearbox, but I can definitely appreciate a manual. And it's a shame that a lot of car companies like BMW, Audi have ditched their manual boxes. You can actually still get a Golf GTI in a manual, but you're going to be waiting around 30 weeks. So you can get in an i30 a lot sooner. What is a little bit of a shame is that amazing exhaust sound can only really be heard from the back. Soundproofing is really good, which most of the time is a very good thing. However, on the i30N, when you've got an exhaust that good and you can't really hear it in the cabin, it's a bit of a shame, but at least everyone following you gets to appreciate it, and that's what really matters, right? Thank you. Apart from if you're an extremely experienced driver, this isn't a car that you can just jump in and master straight away, especially not in the manual. It's actually quite tricky to drive when you first get used to it. Even though you've got that rev matcher, I actually found myself stalling it a couple of times, and I promise that isn't driver error because actually somebody else jumped in to have a go and they had the exact same problem. You really do have to watch your clutch when you're using this car, but once you do get the hang of it, God, it's a lot of fun. It performs really well in bends. Those adaptive dampeners do a really good job of offsetting the car's 1,447 kilogram weight. The i30N suffers from a relatively small fuel tank. It will hold about 300 miles, £50 worth at the moment, and that's not using premium. And really, if you're pushing this car hard, you can expect to see just over 20 miles per gallon. 30 if you're lucky, if you're being sensible, and that means you're going to go through a lot of fuel. So get used to your fuel station because you're going to be visiting it a lot. I've gone through 2 tanks in the week that I've had this car. Now, despite the fact that this car gets a limited slip differential as standard, and it also has those bespoke tyres, it still, in my opinion, struggles to put that power down. You get quite a lot of wheel spin, but then again, that's because this car has 276 brake horsepower through a front wheel drive, and no matter how much you set it up to reduce that spin, you're always going to get quite a lot. Since it was released, the i30N has got more expensive. Now, when it was first launched, it was under £30,000, but now the fact that you can only get the performance as standard with pretty much everything you want included, that means it has pushed the price up to around £33,750. But this still undercuts a lot of its key rivals like the BMW 128Ti and also the Golf GTI, and this car is faster. So it makes you think, why wouldn't you go for the Hyundai i30N? What's more is not only is it one of the cheapest performance cars with the most amount of power, but you also get a 5-year Hyundai warranty, which is really impressive. On top of that, they actually came in the top 5 of the most reliable brands. And if that wasn't enough, and you need a third thing to convince you, Hyundai even include track under their warranty. So if you track this car, it's covered. But you might be wondering, why on earth would they do that? That must just be asking for trouble. Well, the fact is that Hyundai know that this is a fantastic car, and if people get it out on the track, it's going to convince others that they should go for one, which I think is pretty smart. One of the top reasons as to why this is such a fantastic performance car comes down to its DNA. Now, this was actually developed by a guy called Albert Biermann. If you haven't heard of him, he worked at BMW in the glory days and helped develop some of the amazing legendary M cars. Now, in 2014, Hyundai poached him for themselves, and that's why this car has some of the old thrill that the BMWs used to have, especially when it comes down to being able to change everything to the driving performance, and it really shows. I had some really high expectations for the Hyundai i30N, and apart from that lack of kind of excitement on the interior, it lived up to almost all of them. I just wish it was able to put that power that it has down just a little bit better. Even with the limited slip differential and those bespoke tyres, it still struggled for traction and was spinning a lot of the time. But despite all of that, I would 100% consider this car as my next hot hatch. Mind you, I would probably go towards the Hyundai i20N, mainly for fuel consumption, and if you're driving this car for a lot of miles, it could get quite rough over time. It's got a really hard ride. But if you're just doing short journeys and you want a hot hatch which is going to get your pulse racing, then this will 100% do that. Let me know, what do you think of the i30N in the comments below? Should this be my next hot hatch? If you've enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos from me, then make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye.